Hello and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast YouTube channel. My name is Sam and this is week 10 of our F1 Fantasy Show. In this episode, we'll be looking back at how we did in Canada, talking about price changes and looking ahead to this weekend's British Grand Prix, going through Matt's team and any alternatives he might look to swap in before the deadline. But before anything else, let's introduce our fantasy expert, Matt Collier. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right, thank you, Sam. It's crazy to think it's already show 10. It's definitely flown past. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. And yeah, crazy. Already into double figures. This season is really shooting by. Before anything else, let's look back to Canada and see where we sit in the Scenario 7 podcast fancy table, starting with, of course, Performer of the Week, where we look at the person with the most points from the last race. And unfortunately, I haven't got it 2 weeks in a row. It's not me again, gutting. But in Canada, it was James L. with 220 points. He didn't play any of his chips, just some good management of his drivers, with Sainz being his turbo and having Verstappen in the team as well. Now to the top of the table, Andrew T retains his spot with 1,928 points. A very impressive tally, and he is just keeping that spot on lock at the moment. I mean, we know at the start of the season how much Joe Roberts had that spot on locks, and it all changed. So could dethrone him soon, but I don't think it's going to be one of us two after this week's display. Because moving on to you, Matt, and you are down 9 places to 21st on 1,635 points. Without going into too much detail, were you pleased with your performance?
It was a bad day at the office. I think my alternatives in the last show would have scored more points than my entire team this week. So that kind of puts it into context. Maybe I should pick some alternatives and pay more attention to my alternatives. But yeah, it's definitely a bad day at the office.
Yeah, I mean, I was very similar to you in the fact that I also would say that I had a bad day in the office, only getting a few more points. And there seems to be a bit of a trend emerging as I also went down 9 places, but I went down from 25th to 34th on 1,519 points. I got 98 points in Canada. All I need to say is Perez was my turbo driver and got me minus 19. And the rest of the drivers couldn't really do anything to save me. But moving on to you, who I know also had a particular Sergio Perez as their turbo driver, let's go more in depth with last week's team. The team you settled with is on screen now. So you had Fernando Alonso, who got you 7 points. The aforementioned Sergio Perez, your turbo driver, got you 19. Nicholas Latifi, who got you 8. Carlos Sainz, who got you 42. Charles Leclerc, who got you 23. And Red Bull, who got you 31, totaling to 95 points. Now, Matt, talk me through your selection, especially why you decided to select Nicholas Latifi.
I'll go from left to right. I'll start with Alonso first. I pay particular attention to practice, and well, it's safe to say he looked really good in FP3 especially, and qualified P2. It was looking very promising. Got to the race, dropped down a few places, had power problems, then got a 5-second penalty, which cost me quite a few points. So he ended up getting 7 points. Onto my turbo driver, who got negative points, being Perez. Coming into this week, I was like, right, this is going to be a good week. Leclerc starting at the back of the grid. Red Bull got a race streak. I'm going to get loads of points. Perez ended up DNFing. Red Bull didn't get their race streak, and in hindsight, Leclerc actually got more points than Perez. So yeah, that plan went down the plug hole. But in other news, some good news for once. Nicholas Latifi got me 8 points. Seeing those two Hasses qualify in the top 10, I kind of knew what to expect. They'd plummet or they'd DNF, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, Latifi got 8 points. He's keeping up his streak of, if he finishes, he's finished in the top 16, which is always good because he always gets positions gained from basically starting last. So that's why he got 8 points and finished above Kevin Magnussen, who I've definitely criticised a fair few times. Carlos Sainz got 42 points, very solid weekend for him, also getting the fastest lap, which explains why he got so many points. Leclerc got 23 points despite starting at the back of the grid. He still managed to gain a lot of positions. And then Red Bull got 31 points, all mainly because of Max Verstappen.
Yeah, so there you go. That is a breakdown of your team last week. Both let down by the same driver. As soon as I saw it raining, I was like, oh, Perez has got a bit of a mixed record in the wet. And then he put his car in the wall in qualifying, and then in the race, he DNF through no fault of his own. I will defend him by saying. Time to look at some price changes. As always, there have been a lot of fluctuation since the last race, and will continue to be until the deadline. What we talk about now is the prices at the time of recording and are likely to change. So let's start with the drivers. What changes stand out to you?
Yeah, I'll start with the drivers. And the first one is Lance Stroll. He was in my alternatives in the last show and finished in the top 10. So he's gone from 9 million up to 9.1, increase of 0.1. Another increase of 0.1 is Nicholas Latifi. It's gone from 6.6 up to 6.7 after showing some decent consistency of finishing in the top 16. He's gone up by 0.1. On some decreases, and this driver had a horrible weekend out in Canada, mainly because of the McLaren double pit stop, and that is Lando Norris. He's gone from 15.8 million down to 15.7, so a decrease of 0.1. Another decrease is Esteban Ocon. He's gone from 12.4 million down to 12.3, so a decrease of 0.1, despite still getting points in Canada. And then Alex Albon, who didn't get points in Canada, has gone from 7.8 down to 7.6 million, so a decrease of 0.2. Onto some constructors, and there's been one massive spike this weekend, and that is surprisingly Williams. They've gone from 6.5 up to 7.2 million, so an increase of 0.7 million. Maybe the Haas doing awful was kind of trigger that spike. Another increase is Alpine. They've gone from 13.9 million up to 14 million, so an increase of 0.1. And they also have a race streak this weekend, so plenty of points on the table for them. Another increase is Aston Martin, gone from 11.1 up to 11.2, increase of 0.1. Definitely could have been a lot better out in Canada, especially with how quick Vettel looked in FP3, but Stroll still got some points, so that was good for him. Then another decrease is Alfa Romeo. They've gone from 8.7 down to 8.6, decrease of 0.1. A little bit surprising because both of them had brilliant races, getting points in Canada, but they've decreased by 0.1.
That is slightly surprising. Let's look at the team you might be deploying this week. And of course, we need to preface this by saying that this is subject to change as the deadline is not until Saturday, and practice sessions can be used as an insight into how teams will perform this weekend. And I know, Matt, you're using practice more and more to decipher who should be going into your lineup each week. So let's start up with Fernando Alonso. He's the first driver in an unchanged fantasy lineup, costing 12.4 million. Why does he keep his place?
I think Alpine are starting to develop their car really well, and he's a very experienced driver, being the most experienced driver on the grid. And yeah, he was a bit unlucky out in Canada, qualified P2, which was amazing, but then just dropped down. He does have a race streak this weekend, showing how consistent he's been over the last 4 races. So if he finishes in the top 10, he'll get an extra +10. So that's why I've kept him in my team.
Sergio Perez also keeps his place, valued at 18.4 million. He's no longer your turbo driver. I wonder why. Why have you kept faith with him?
Yeah, I've kind of explained earlier that there's a lot of below 20 million drivers that are in the battle for the championship, and Perez is one of them. He's in a very quick Red Bull. He's just had some bad luck with reliability. So yeah, that's why I've kept him in my team, hoping he'll do well this weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed for Sergio Perez this weekend. Latifi next, priced at 6.7 million. Why?
I was surprised you sound so shocked. A lot of the drivers that I've criticised, aka being Haas, they normally qualify so high up the grid and plummet down, so they get a lot of positions lost, which is negative points. And also Haas don't exactly have a very reliable car. Magnussen's also very aggressive, and yeah, Latifi starting last. If cars DNF, he actually benefits from that and gets positions gained. So yeah, I mean, Latifi's increased by 0.1, so I'm not the only person that's put him in people's teams. And yeah, he keeps his place, and hopefully he'll move up the grid when the checker flag drops.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for him in every race, the only way is up as the carnage ensures. So Carlos Sainz stays another week, costing 17.2 million. So close to a race victory in Canada, but we've heard that before with him. Why have you decided to keep him?
Yeah, he did a really good race out in Canada. He's in a competitive Ferrari. It's just about the reliability. He's got a qualifying streak this weekend, so he'll get a +5 if he qualifies in the top 10. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see how he does this weekend, but I still expect a good result from him.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he can get you a podium or maybe even a victory. Maybe this is his time. Charles Leclerc is the final driver in your team and your turbo driver, replacing, of course, Sergio Perez. 18.8 million, so has dropped. Why is he in your team, and why are you making him your turbo driver?
Well, I think I should have kept Leclerc as my turbo driver last week, despite starting at the back of the grid. Yeah, loads of people have Leclerc as their turbo driver, and yeah, I kind of think it is a must really for turbo driver, unless you're playing like a Mega Driver chip. But last year in Silverstone, he had a very good race. He led the majority of the race after the Hamilton and Verstappen collision, and yeah, hopefully he'll do very well this week. He's always got the potential of getting on pole, and yeah, as explained last year, he did very well. So that's why I've kept him in my team.
Seems a good reason. Time for the Constructor, and Red Bull keeps its place, valued at 32.5 million. Of course, did have a DNF last week, but also got a race win. So why have you kept them in your team?
Well, Max Verstappen is just carrying my points for quite a few weeks. It's been, to be fair, and yeah, for me, Red Bull are the best constructor. Yeah, shame they didn't get the race streak out in Canada, but yeah, their car's definitely got a lot of pace, and Verstappen has just been exceptional. So yeah, we'll have to see how Red Bull get on this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, having your constructor as the team that's leading the constructors table is probably not a bad thing. We've gone through your team, but who are some alternatives that you're potentially looking to swap in before the deadline and that people at home could consider putting in their teams?
Or even me, so I should consider, because especially after the last show. But yeah, I'll go through three alternatives like I do on each show. I'll start with a constructor, and that constructor is Mercedes, currently priced at 33.7 million. With their amazing reliability this season, they have a race streak this weekend at Silverstone. So two Brits with the potential of getting a +10 from Mercedes. So that's why you should consider them. Onto some drivers. I've gone with Sebastian Vettel, priced at 11.6 million. I felt he was very unlucky out in Canada and definitely could have got some points. He had a very good race in Baku, and yeah, Vettel won this race back in 2018, so that's an alternative you should consider. And then last but not least, another alternative is Mr. Consistent, and that is George Russell, currently priced at 23.8 million. He has got a qualifying streak and a race streak this weekend. So plenty of streaks for Mercedes and Mercedes drivers. And yeah, he's just been really consistent this weekend, and got his home Grand Prix as well. I'm sure the home fans will give him some extra pace this weekend, and we'll have to see how he does.
Yeah, Mercedes have all kinds of streaks, and with this track suiting their car, could potentially be in a fight with Ferrari and Red Bull. We'll have to wait and see, but could potentially have a Brit on the front row, but who knows which one it will be. But that wraps up our video. I hope you found it helpful. A reminder that the deadline for changes is an hour before qualifying, so get your teams finalised by then. Remember to like and subscribe, follow us on our socials, linked down below, along with the fancy league code if you would still like to join. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.